Welcome to the Tool Review channel, and for today's video we are taking a look at the Klein Tools D2000-7CST Ironworker pliers. Now these are pretty much identical to a normal pair of linesman pliers, but they are more marketed towards the ironworkers out there who need to twist a bunch of rebar wire and have to cut the rebar wire as well. This is a tool that's mainly marketed towards them, but you could also use it for if you're doing some electrical work or some heating and cooling work. You could use it for pretty much any purpose. But like I said, this tool is mainly marketed towards the ironworkers out there. So to start off the video here, unlike a traditional pair of lineman pliers, these are spring-loaded. So you can see that they do have a spring right there, which is very nice. It is nice that the tool does spring open. So with these pair of spring-loaded lineman pliers or ironwork pliers, you don't really have that break-in period that you have with, a standard pair. Sometimes you have those Klein pliers where they're real sticky and you got to, break them in before they're loose and open right up. These, they just spring wide open, so you don't really have to have a break-in period. Now these have I believe these are 9.5 or maybe 9.25 inches in long when it comes down to it, but they do feature a 7-inch head, hence the 7-7 in the model number for the plier. And then, typical with most ironworker tools or ironworker pliers, you have this little lip here on the end of one of the handles, which is, I guess, to better fit in your hand for when you're twisting wire. And I do kind of like that feature a lot. And now coming up to the business end of the tool, this is almost kind of comparable in size to the D2000-7 lineman pliers from Klein Tools. This has that more traditional New England style head, where these have more of that square old school lineman plier head on them. These you can kind of use them if you needed to remount some pipe, where these you kind of have a little bit hard time doing it since the head's a lot thicker. But you can see you got the Klein Tools name and all of the different information. You got the Klein Tools name, logo, and model number and things like that, and some safety warnings. You have a pretty decent sized cutting edge, not the biggest thing in the world, but then again, it's not the smallest cutting edge in the world. But you're mainly going to be using it for, cutting through some hardened, some rebar wire and or anything. It being a D2000 plier, you can cut through, screws, nails, anything that basically is hardened wire, copper, brass, and things of that nature. I'm not sure you'd be cutting through brass, but, copper, aluminum wire, things like that. And then coming to the nose of the plier, you have a fairly aggressive crosshatch on the nose, which is nice, where if we bring in that 7-inch pair of pliers here, you can see it's not quite as aggressive as it is on the 7-inch pair. So that is definitely, I would say, a nice improvement for these pliers. Now, as you can see, there's a bunch of oil coming out of the back of the plier, but that's pretty typical when you get a new pair of pliers, especially if you do oil them up before you use them. It is typical to see that black oil. It's just, some grease and junk from the manufacturing process working its way out through that through the rivets. And as you can see, that the rivet is a little bit farther away from the cutting edge than it should be, whereas this one, it's super close to the cutting edge, but, it's still, being a spring-loaded tool, it's still, you're going to have no problem cutting through those harder materials. So that's basically about it for the detail on these pliers. Now we'll zoom out here, and we'll bring in the 9-inch pair. So this is the 9-inch pair of these pliers, and you can see that there's definitely a size difference. So your handles are going to be a lot thinner, and then obviously the heads are a lot different, whereas the 9-inch pair, you have a fairly larger head, and the 7-inch pair, you have a fairly small head on there. And then the 9-inch pair does have a lot more aggressive crosshatch on the plier, so you're probably going to get a lot better of a grip than you are with the little 7-inch pair. But, not everyone needs a giant 9-inch pair of ironworking pliers, where maybe you just, you're doing some light rebar work and things like that. You maybe just want a small compact pair of pliers on hand. These should be able to get the job done. So now we're going to go ahead and cut through some wire here like we always do. And we're just going to cut through just a couple gauges of wire. So we got some 12-gauge stranded wire right here. Now they don't quite cut through, you'll be able to see right there, they don't quite cut through that that insulation all the way. You kind of have to break it off that final way, but it can cut through that 12-gauge stranded wire. So we'll set that off to the side, and we'll bring in our 10-gauge stranded wire, and again, we'll go ahead and cut through that. And we do have the same results where it's, depending on where you put it in the cutting job, It, as you just saw, can cut through a conductor all the way, but sometimes it does struggle to get through it. So we'll go ahead and see if we can get through it without any issue. And as you can see right there, it does kind of struggle to get there or to get through it, but you know, you just kind of have to break it off. So it can cut through some copper wire. Now, like I said before, you're going to be mainly using these to cut through some harder wires. So we got some ceiling grid wire right here, which is about one of the hardest wires that I run into on a daily basis, doing commercial heating and cooling. For some reason, they always seem to like to put the ceiling up before everyone else needs to get in there. And you're constantly dealing with the ceiling grid wires. So these should have no issue cutting through that ceiling grid wire. And with those larger handles, you definitely can get a lot better leverage on there, and you don't have any issues cutting through there. So that was some ceiling grid wire. Now we'll throw that off to the side and bring in, this is some wire that comes out of some flexible insulation. Again, it's just another hardened wire, and these should have, theoretically have no issue cutting through that. And they indeed have no problems chopping that stuff up. And since these are part of the D2000 series, they should be able to cut through screws. So one thing that we're going to go ahead and cut through and chop this guy up into as many pieces as we can. This is a 632 screw. So we'll go ahead and chop that up, and these shouldn't have any issues cutting through them. So go ahead. Definitely a little bit more challenging. To do it one-handed, but you are able to do it, and there is no damage done to the cutting edge. That's just some leftover shavings from the screw. So that was a 632 screw. Now I'll bring in our friend, the 832 screw. Don't really run into these a lot. You mainly run into the 632 screws, but, you know, don't rule out the 832nd screw or the 832 screw. So we'll go ahead and chop him up as well. Definitely a little bit of a struggle to do one-handed, but it does it is able to get the job done and send the part of the screw flying into the background. So go ahead and do it two hands there, and we are able to chop that guy up. And again, like I said, it has induction hardened cutting knives on there, so it is ready to cut through those. And after we did that, we're going to go ahead and bring some wire back in and see if we can't cut through that as well. And indeed, we are able to cut through it. You just kind of, you know, have to break it off that final way, which, depending on a pair of pliers, this isn't the first pair of Kleins that I have where I have to do that with. It's just kind of, you know, a thing with some of them. And it all comes down to, when you take a look at the cutting knives, depends on how straight they are and if there is a gap. And there is not really a gap. I can't really see a gap in between them, but you can see one right there if you don't quite have the pressure squeezed down all of the way. So with that being said, these are definitely a nice pair of ironwork pliers, lineman pliers, whatever you want to refer to them as, from Klein. They do struggle a little bit cutting through some of the copper wire. I would assume it's just my pair. Maybe the jaws aren't as lined up as they should be, like compared to some of the other pliers that we've tested. But they are able to get through it, and as you saw, it is able to chop up that ceiling grid wire, that flex, and the screws. So that is, you know, that's a plus. That's what these are really meant for, is for cutting through that harder wire, that rebar wire, things like that. You're not really going to be using them as an electrician or a heating and air guy or whatever you're going to be doing with them around the house. But if you do like a spring-loaded pair of pliers and you maybe don't need that 9-inch pair of pliers, definitely check these out. You can buy them just with the lineman pliers or the ironwork pliers by themselves, or you can get them in a kit that comes with a pair of diagonal cutters as well that have an angled head. That's how I picked these up. Here is the pair of diagonal cutters that you get with that set. I believe they also feature a 9-inch long handle. We're going to be taking a look at these here in a little bit on a different video. But you can buy them in a kit. There are a couple different kits out there depending on where you order from. Most of the kits that are out there, the most popular ones that are out there, just come with the two pairs of pliers. But I have seen a kit floating around out there. I'm not sure if it's exclusive just to Home Depot, if it's just a thing Home Depot runs. But on Home Depot's website, you're not going to be able to find it in stores. I have seen it where it comes with a little pouch as well. So there is that option. I'm not sure if that's, like I said, not sure if that's just a Home Depot thing or if maybe some other distributors out there carry that. So there is that option as well. But as always, I will leave a link to this tool down in the description below if you want to check it out for yourself. But that's all I have for this video. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next video to be uploaded.